There we go. Hello, hello, hello. Okay, is everybody here?
Yeah, a few people funneling in, but it's on them for being late.
That's on you for being late. Role modeling for your team. I need the mic, right?
Yeah.
It's a little bit better with my, okay, cool. So honestly, I'll tell you all about myself in a minute, but this is 100% meant to be a conversation. I'm gonna throw 100 slides at you, not for the purposes of like making you go to sleep because you're now all on a sugar high, but for the purposes of saying, what is she talking about? Oh, that's an example. Oh, that's an example. Oh, I understand. You're also going to see a ton of consumer examples, even though most of you are building enterprise. It doesn't matter. I want you to understand that I could literally workshop with every single one of you what your community playbook is, even though you may not have launched, even though you're literally sitting there with the problem you want to solve and how you're going to solve it, and that's all you know right now. For whatever sense of where you are, I know some of you have raised, some of you haven't raised, many of you are, already accelerating and you're going to market, some of you are just sitting with an idea. It's okay. I work with founders every single day. And so you'll hear a little bit about my background, but what we're really going to talk about today is that community is very serious business. It's not a 501c3. It's not chairs in a circle in a basement, although we're kind of on chairs in a circle in a basement right now, but this is not a 501c3. Maybe 12 steps later, but not now. And so to understand everything is to actually understand what community really means. A quick scan of my background, you can follow me, you can link in with me and we can talk, but I've been around the block a lot. And so I'm a serial founder. I've raised hundreds of millions of dollars. I've been also, so I'm an entrepreneur. I'm also an intrapreneur, meaning I've gone inside of really big companies like Johnson & Johnson, like AOL Time Warner, and I've turned around and scaled companies inside of those companies. So operating at scale is something I really like, which is why it's fun to be an intrapreneur. I've co-founded stuff, we talked about it, and now I sit on boards. So I've been on public boards, I'm on private boards, I'm on nonprofit boards. I like to accelerate things and I like to bring my wisdom around that table. And so that's the work I do. I also spend probably more than 50% of my time right now at USC teaching students like Anna, who I met when she was a freshman, and she was my student. She's taken this class. She could teach this class. You are so lucky to have her in the cohort. She's definitely the bomb. You probably know that already, but she's extraordinary. Fun fact is that 4 years ago, we were trying to figure out what the t-shirts were going to be for the class, and Anna helped me with a lot of these graphics, and I pulled some of them into the deck today because I knew you were going to be here and I was stoked to do it. The other thing that I do is I build bridges between the kind of corporate world and the startup world. So I'm always working with VCs, convening salons, making sure founders know the right people. Like if I can do that, that's like another practice. And so Leah and I will talk more about that later. But I'm really here to talk to you about the fact that community is serious business. So what does that mean? You've heard of go-to-market. You're probably learning about go-to-market. I believe that community is the new go-to-market. Think about what is AI made up of? Anyone? Just 3 letters, large language models. Where do they come from? People. Therefore, you could argue that there would be no AI, there would be no LLMs without community, because it's the wisdom of the crowds at scale that are actually driving the intelligence of the machines. And so understanding the humanity in AI, understanding that humanity is the moat around AI, and that's a whole nother talk, is something that you have to think about in the construct of what does it actually mean to be with the people. And so I'm not going to go through this slide, but the reason I put it up here is because it is so important for all of you as founders to not only understand your own stuff, but to really understand the signals that are changing the economic landscape. And so those signals are generational insights, like with Gen Z coming of age and millennials, it's going to be the largest wealth transfer in the history of the universe. So trillions of dollars are going to move from parents and grandparents to kids who don't know what to do with it. We've never seen a wealth transfer like this. So why does that matter to you? Lots of reasons. You might be building a fintech firm. You might be building, a friend of mine is building this amazing estate settlement firm. You might be thinking about, ways in which to help them manage their money. That is a new interface. Robinhood is not that different than Schwab and E-Trade, but it's a new interface for a new time. So thinking about these trends, people are cutting their cords. People are not watching cable anymore. More than half the people have already cut, and 30% more say they're going to cut this year. So what does that mean? There's no more tune-in. It's all streaming, it's all on demand, and your remote control is recording everything you're saying to it because it's also a language model. So your remote control is now an audio guide. So audio is so important because it's your own interface. So if you just say to your remote control, I want to watch the news, I want to watch space, I want to watch the rocket launch, it will find it for you. Whereas we used to have guides. So why does that matter? Well, think about it. Like if you're trying to figure out how to find your audience, how to tag your audience, all the rest, all of these things matter. The creator economy, it's not about big creators anymore. It's about micro-influencers, which means if you're in trade, if you're doing enterprise, find your people. We're going to go through all of this, but it's just really important to understand. And I end on trust, because if I could just put one word up here and just sit and meditate with you for an hour, the only word it would say would be trust. Because there's been such a demise of trust in institutions, in governments. So where has that trust gone? It's gone to companies. So all of a sudden CEOs are finding themselves, and founders, having to have a point of view about things that are outside their normal business realm, because people are looking for a place to trust. We're in the relationship economy, and as founders and leaders, you are the front runners of that relationship economy. And so building trust with your teams, building trust most importantly with your customers and your stakeholders, which might be your suppliers, which might be your government, grantors, which might be the people who pack your boxes. All those people are your people, and those are your community, in addition to your customers. So trust is really important, and community is that new omni-channel, because if somebody trusts you, they're gonna share it with their friends. If somebody trusts you that when you trip and fall, which you will many times, they'll forgive you because you're honest, you're transparent, you're like, look, I made a mistake, here's where we are. But if they don't trust you, you've lost it. It's breaking trust. It's really hard to earn it back, especially for young companies. And because founders need to be out there, you also have your personal brands on the line. And so trust is really important, and you want to create crowdsourced demand. Because I like to say that, relationships are the only things that matter with your investors, with each other, with your employees, because they're going to bring their friends. And empathy is the only thing that scales. And Anna did this graphic, just have a moment of my favorite graphic about community. Well done, my friend. It has legs. So when we think about trust, you probably are thinking, well, I'm not in governance, doesn't really matter, this doesn't apply to me. It totally applies to you, because trust just isn't relational trust. There's functional trust. You said it was going to work this way and it doesn't. Okay, you broke my trust. But when it does, I start to implicitly, by my brain, begin to trust you. There's transactional trust. Wow, did you charge my credit card what you said you were going to charge it? Did you have Stripe in the middle, or are you asking me for my bank account information? These are unconscious signals that you're building trust. Is it morally trust? Are these replaced parts? Is this a gray market? Are you using underage factories? What do we know about you and your brand? These are all trust issues. And then finally, like, is this relevant to me? Like, why are you showing me this shit? This has nothing to do with me. So I already signed in, you asked me to create a profile, and now you're showing me stuff that isn't mine. So all of these things are unconsciously building a trust circle. So trust is at the center. And, you know, I don't know what your mom's told you. My mom told me to treat others as I wanted to be treated. She said that was the golden rule. And if she were alive today, she would probably agree with me that that's not the golden rule anymore. You got to treat others as they want to be treated. And you have to understand, like, meet them where they live. And so all of those are like the fundamental underpinnings of what it means to build community, because a brand is not what you say about yourself. You could say it all day long on this stage and all of your presentation stages, but a brand is what a friend tells a friend. And so how do you architect that narrative? Like, what does that even mean? Your agency isn't going to do that for you. You have to, like, embody the essence of your brand, because that narrative is where trust happens, not when you're in the room, not when you're on a billboard, although those things matter too, but for different reasons. So if that's the case, like, one-to-one is a great way, but it doesn't have a lot of scale. You know, many-to-one, like, listen, they're talking to you, go to that subreddit, understand what's happening in that Discord, pay attention. But the real magic is happening in many-to-many. And so that's why the architecture of your brand narrative is really important, and your story is really important, because you want that bi-directional thing. So this is, like, if we stopped here, this is the whole thing. This is my playbook. This is what we're going to go through today, and we're going to fly. But it all adds up to loyalty. Everything that we do here is about loyalty, but it's different factors. And so in my class, or in my companies, like, community has been the underbelly of everything that I've done. The last company that I ran was called Brandless. It was a CPG company, but it was all about, like, listening to our customers. What products did they want? How were they part of the conversation? The one before that was Baby Center. We're the largest platform for new and expecting moms here in the US and in 22 countries, 14 languages. And when I left that company, 8 out of 10 babies in the US were Baby Center babies. So, like, I know scale, and I know how to think about audience, stakeholders, pediatricians, obstetricians, moms, dads, grandmas. Our newsletters often had 120% open rate. You're like, how's that even possible? It's because they got passed along. And so thinking about every piece of your experience, there's a community opportunity. I didn't pass those along, but we built them that way. And so we'll get into receptional design and what that means, but we're gonna start with trust and meaning. And so trust and meaning means, like, I see you, I know what your problem is, and I'm here to solve it. And, you know, Anna, I keep looking at you because consumers are not going to use your product, but you have to convince, like, engineers and geophysicists and government agencies that, like, you understand what their problem space is. So it's the people, and say, like, I get it, I understand the new frontiers, and shared values, those are going to strengthen loyalty in your relationships. So understanding and meeting people, like, specifically where they are, and saying, like, I see you, I get it, we share that problem set, we share that value set, we want to solve the same problems, and I want to do that with you. So you have to sort of say, like, who do you trust? Like, who does your brand trust? And think about, who do they trust? Like, who are you trying to unseat a competitor? And if you are, who do they currently trust? And is there a wedge in that trust that you can find your way in? What's your brand's purpose? We'll get into this a little bit later, but are you building a company with a purpose? Are you building a purpose with a company? I would argue it's the second, and I'll tell you why and how to think about it. But a lot of people slap purpose on their stuff, and it reeks of greenwashing, pinkwashing, whatever washing. But if you really say, like, this is deeply what we want to do in the world, you may not do it out of the gate, but if you understand it and you recruit around it and you storytell around it, you're going to have a company that's going to show up that way. And then, what do you believe in? Like, what are your truths? What do you believe about how the world is changing? That's why when I started with that eye chart with all the different facts about the psychographic, ethnographics, consumer trends, and enterprise trends, always be looking at those things, because those are signals that are going to validate what your belief systems are about why you have a right to exist. I'm going to fly through a lot of this data because it's really just validating the point of, like, if people trust you, they'll buy your product. If people trust you, they'll tell friends. If they don't trust you, they walk away. There's been such a loss of trust in so many other areas. Here's a foundation. Like, these are big brands that you've all heard about, but they put out there what the foundations are for their ambitions. You need to do the same. Because if you boil these companies down, this is what you're going to read. And so much of it is like these big, large aspirational goals. But I say, and I'm quoting my friend Simon. Did Simon come into class when you were there? No? He's a rock star. So he has many, million-view TED Talks, and he comes in to co-teach with me every year. But this idea of being a purpose with a company and not a company with a purpose, so how do you do that? You think about you alone, you and others in relationship to the stakeholders, and then you and the world. And the center of that is your purpose. And so we're going to get into how you do that in a second. But like this company, Bombas, they make great socks, but they also give a pair away to the homeless. So in the moment on the street, they don't tell you that in every single ad, but they find site-specific ways to make that message matter. I love this one, Tony's Chocolate. If any of you have had Tony's Chocolate, it's really good. But they had best practices with the cocoa industry, and they wanted to use the opportunity to tell their competitors, like, get with the program, dudes. Like, you're deforesting, you don't have best practices. So they mocked up their own brand on everyone else's, mocked labels, and shamed them into coming along with their purpose. So it was a way of co-opting other people's designs and brands with their purpose, and the industry paid attention. Sprouts, you might be familiar with them. They're a supermarket down in LA. But this isn't all their ads, but this is one of their conversations around the people, their supply chain, how they want people to live, how they want people to feel, to create a world moved by mountains. So this is an entire campaign for a Patagonia-like disruptor, but every word matters. And Simon did a lot of this work, but it's like thinking about your words are really important. Dove has been doing Real Beauty for 25 years and still going strong, and they keep changing it, but it's about empowerment. Nike, when they do sustainability, they get behind it and they talk about it in their ads. But this is where I said we would come back to it. So it's what we will achieve and why it will be meaningful. So when you think about this, is you alone, like, what's your enemy? Who are you fighting against? What are you trying to change? What do you want to stand for? You and others, when you're at your best, what are you doing personally, and what's your company doing? And what are you the only of? Try and name those things. And this is an internal exercise to wayfind your way into your purpose. And then in your world, how is the world going to be better when you're in it? What are you going to solve? Are you going to save people money? Are you going to save people time? Are you going to make things more effective? Are you going to pioneer new frontiers? What are you doing? And why does it matter? So now we're going to get into something that I actually gave an entire TED Talk on, which you can check out, on what I coined, this word, I love making up words, called receptional design. So what is receptional design? I looked at the neuroscience, and full disclosure, I'm not a neuroscientist, but I like to play one on stage. How do you unlock the emotions of the brain? Because if you think about the word receptional, the word itself is a concept of reception that's exceptional. So at that moment, and this may show up in your UI and UX, and I'll show you examples, but that moment of discovery, that's the moment where you have an exceptional experience. And that might seem abstract to you, but I'll walk you through what that means. It's do any of you play chess? Show of hands. So you know how you think 3 steps ahead? Imagine thinking that way as as a product designer, as an entrepreneur. Not what is the next swipe or gesture that I want somebody to make with my product, service, or experience, but what are 2 gestures away? And then now let me think about how I get them there, so that when I get them there, 1 is the shortest distance between 2 points. Maybe it's a wink with a link. Maybe it's cheeky and we find our voice there. I remember when Slack first launched and when they were doing upgrades, they'd say, so sorry we're upgrading our software, but while we have you, just don't forget to wear sunscreen. So, and they literally had an entire team that was writing that copy. When Google, when you're in Chrome and you get disconnected from Wi-Fi, it says, oops, something wrong. So all of a sudden, those are like tiny, like 2-point type, but you build a relationship. And Google actually has people all over the world writing that in the cultural, way that's somebody would say that in that region in Australia. They were like, good day, mate. But here they're like, morning. And so those little things actually have a way of affecting your brain, because when you think about the brain, you have, endorphins. Like if any of you are athletes, that feeling when you're like jacked and you're psyched and you're pumped and you're going for it. But then there's like serotonin. If you've heard of what an SSRI is, it's a serotonin inhibitor. Serotonin is the chemical in your brain that like creates anxiety. And so we're always looking to like lower the anxiety. Well, how do we do that? Oxytocin, moments of joy, moments of love, feeling connected. And then there's dopamine, which can create a dopamine effect. But if you can shift someone from serotonin, kind of place where they're anxious, to a place of comfort, that's amazing. So who does that well? Think about a world where you have to get to SFO and your plane is leaving at 4 o'clock and you're here. And it's 2 o'clock, and you're like, damn, when's Leah gonna finish? I gotta get out of here, I gotta make a plane. So you open up Uber, and you're like, okay, there's a car that's 2 minutes away, it's gonna get me there in 17 minutes. So do I call it now? Do I think she has 2 minutes left? And then, she says, we're wrapping up, and you're good. You press, and all of a sudden, boom, you're at the airport. But that place of like, I'm sitting here, am I gonna miss my plane, to Uber telling you there's a car 2 minutes away, and you're gonna be there in 17 minutes, you're good. So like, that's chess. That's like pulling forward the experience that somebody's having when they show up at that exact moment. Had you opened up your phone 10 minutes earlier, you would have gotten a different message. And so it's like that moment. Receptional design is the art of transforming your emotional state at that exact moment of engagement. It's not designing for like, here's the concept I want you to understand. It's actually designing for the moment of reception. And so again, I'm not gonna go into this slide, but it's like the neuroscience of why that works. You can watch the TED Talk, which is very old. But it's still, I totally stand by it. I would just update it if I could, which I am right now. For those of you who have an Oura Ring, I had to wake up very early this morning, so I was kind of wanting to see my sleep score, kind of not wanting to see my sleep score. But it's that moment that I need it. That score is not there for me when I don't need it, but then it's showing me, and then occasionally it'll say, like, don't you want to get up and walk around? You've been sitting for a long time. Like, that's a receptional moment that's only there at the moment that I need it. How many of you have like been so happy when you go to get like a verify number and iMessage will like put it there, so it's automatic. I call that automagical. That's a receptional design moment where it pulls something. That's thinking like a chess player. Like, oh, they're gonna go somewhere, they're gonna need something, but they're gonna come back here and their thumbs are too fat to like actually get that number, so I'm gonna put it there. That's a receptional design moment. Have anybody ever been paid by Gusto? So like, there was never a time when like the payroll provider in the background that was like dealing with your back office was actually saying, woo, it's payday. Like, but that's like a receptional moment because you smile. I just got a grant at USC. I lead a Gen AI grant to accelerate student ventures, and the Office of Research and Innovation, when they sent out the "You've been awarded the grant," I opened it and it had like little confetti. I was like, yes. It was just a little thing, but that's a receptional moment. It's TikTok is not a receptional design platform. That's not what I'm showing you. What I'm showing you here is that when I go to a certain place, it's already knowing locally where I am without me telling it. So all of a sudden, it pulls me in. It's like putting a front end on the algorithm, saying, well, because we know where she is, we can show things that are relevant to her. And so those are tiny moments that matter. For those of you who've ever been to Disney and used these bands, they're basically just ways to get into the park, but they're moments of joy and discovery when you get to swipe and everything's there. So there's lots of different ways. Lyft is the story I already told you, where they're like, they say hi, they already know where I'm going, they automatically fill that in. LinkedIn, this tiny gesture of being able to put a badge on your photo, that's not all of LinkedIn. This is just a tiny place, but these are receptional moments where at the moment that you want people to look at your profile, you want them to know that you're open to work. Any other time, it doesn't matter. So you got to ask yourself, like, are you designing micro moments, not just the experience? And does your product have automagical moments? Because those are the things that people unconsciously or consciously will remember. So spotlights. I'm sure here you do a great job of spotlighting people because that's what you're here for. But I started to talk to you earlier about, like, who are your stakeholders? How do you make them feel seen? Because your stakeholders, your grant writers, your first customers, your beta testers, your factory suppliers, like all the people, they are part of your story. So how do you have them, remember, brands, what a friend tells a friend. What are you working on? Oh, I just gave a grant to this great startup. They're building space robots. Really? Tell me more. You're not there, but like you want to be the architect of that story. So you got to celebrate them, celebrate their wins. It's a consumer example. So you've heard of Sephora. That's not the point of the story. Sephora goes out and finds micro influencers, and not only do they celebrate them as their squad, but they also say, these were the ones from last year, and they're now going to be your mentors. And then if you click, they're actually giving you their Insta, their TikTok, their LinkedIn in places. So like they're using their platform to help someone else. That tiny, tiny, tiny little link is like a gift from Sephora to this moment, and they're spotlighting these great people, and they're not, you know, the cover girls for the cosmetic companies, and it's not on their Instas, but they're saying, go check them out. We like these people. Does anybody here ride a Peloton? Me, I do. What I love about Peloton is that the product experience on the screen for the teachers enables, like you're in your basement on a bike by yourself in the dark, but yet the teacher knows that you're there. The teacher sees and knows what number ride this is for you, and they're shouting you out. But the only way to make that possible is for you as a PM to actually design an experience to enable the teacher to do that. And then they have badges. They tell you what ride you're on. They also tell you, they make their teachers the stars. They tell you how many workouts you've had, and then you can hashtag. So you can hashtag, like, this is my friend Dara. She used to be the CMO of Peloton, but you can find your squad. Like, so if I have hashtag Pello Moms, like I'll see that other Pello Moms are writing. And then there's an Instagram if I go search up Pello Moms or Pello Foodies or whatever. So it's like an ecosystem of community that they're just enabling. They're not actually doing it. BrickCon, this is a Lego conference, and they're spotlighting the people that are there. Walmart, I was meant to put up some screens on that. They have an entire program of their employees helping recruit new employees. Who better to recruit an employee? So they enabled them with TikTok accounts. Love this. Apple, if you've seen their latest iPhone, we're going to use this example in 2 places, but these are their people. This is a selfie. They're having fun with our phones. There's nothing about the phone on there except what phone they shot it on. Always want to spotlight pets. So you have to ask yourself, like, who is your tribe? And how are you spotlighting them? How are you putting them into the story? April Underwood, a friend of mine who's now a VC at Adverb, but she ran she was brought into Slack from Twitter to run the platform when Slack decided to open up its platform. And so she had to identify, like, who's her community. So she went to 7 people. Her entire community was 7 people. But who were those 7 people? The people who own Google Drive. That was kind of important to build an API for them. People who were at Figma, the people who were at Adobe. So all of a sudden, Slack went from being a messaging platform that was just central to the workplace to being a community platform where it had the APIs where you could share everything that you were working on. So it's those moments like, who are those people and how do you bring them into the conversation? So storytelling. There are so many stories to be told, and people remember stories. You know, a brand is a story that is always being told, and that data can inform them, and data can help you tell great stories, and I'll show you some, but people don't remember data. They remember stories. And so how do you find those stories and make them told? And you need to tell your own stories. So founders, all of you, you need a story. And you need to be comfortable with your story, and your story needs to be authentic to you. Not all stories need to be authentic. They can be funny, but there's like a framework for a storytelling map, and there's lots of different ways to think about telling stories. You have to like think about like, what's the question? Why does it matter? Why is this story true? Like an origin, can you engineer this story for virality? And we'll talk about engineering for virality in a minute. What type of story is it? Is it serialized? Is it witnessed? Is it funny? What's, you know, Marshall McLuhan, if you don't know who that is, he's a very famous intellectual, and I don't know, 50, 80 years ago, I don't know when he said it, but the medium is the message. So the story you tell on LinkedIn is different probably than the story you tell on X, probably different than the story you tell on Reddit, but like the medium is the message. So think about how your story translates to different mediums. And then stories can be immersive and sensorial. So if anybody ever been to Meow Wolf, I see some shaking heads. Meow Wolf's amazing, but it's like you're brought into the story, into the experience. For those of you who are Bridgerton fans, like they bring that story to life in certain places and spaces, and Netflix is even starting theme parks with some of their signature stories. How do you bring people in? The thing that Mr. Beast is impressive, it's not how big he is or how successful he is, it's his origin story. Like he went and kind of unpacked the YouTube algorithm, and that was the direction that led him to what stories he wanted to tell. And so Liquid Death is a very funny story. It's totally a made-up narrative, but they are so true to that story. It's water in a freaking can, but it's fun, and it's original, and it scales, and they told all these stories before they even had a distributor. They just went and made up all these stories. And excuse me, if you look at it today, they have not changed their like commitment to their lane. And what's interesting is that they went and saw all of these like rock stars who were like drinking their energy drinks on the stage, and they said, wow, you guys must be jacked. They're like, no, it's just water in there. And they were like, huh. So there's like an opportunity to be like badass water, not just chick water. Yes?
The stories are made up. Is the founder's story made up? How they, he couldn't get like what he was putting out. He was like a marketing genius, and then that was made up where he's a marketing genius, and then he's like, well, I'll just go sell water, and I can't prove that I can sell anything or something like that.
I don't know. I mean, I'm sure his story, he did disrupt the market. So I'm sure that's factually real. But whether or not that's a good question. I don't know. But I know that, you know, they did all of this before they even had distribution. Yes.
What are some ways that we can understand whether a story is actually resonating? And then on top of that, we can kind of curate and get through that. How do we get better at this? Is it just like a matter of how many reps you put in?
I was going to say reps. I love that you said that. By the way, what's your name? Hi, I'm Tina. I guess you knew that. But yes, I think that you can reverse engineer how you tell a story. And you have to decide, like, what is authentic to you? And so writing that story down, and then I'm a huge fan of validation. And so there's a great book called The Mom Test. I wish it wasn't called that, but it's a great book, and it's all about how do you test your story and how do you test your assumptions, because the whole point is you're not supposed to ask your mom, because everything you do is perfect. So don't ask her. And you can validate, like, we could do a validation sprint right now. We're not going to, we don't have time, but I could do a validation sprint with you in 15 minutes. And so I would say, go find your people. For some of you, that might be people you already have on text. For some of you, you got to go to a subreddit. For some of you, it's a Facebook group. For some of you, it's a Discord. But go find your people and talk to them about what you're doing. They're out there. And go into the field. And then, like, begin to think about the architecture of that narrative. I'd have to know what you're doing, but I think that real and imagined stories can be a great way. This is an imagined story, but Spotify is an example. Like, if you're a Spotify user member, at the end of every year, you get Wrapped. So they take, this is a data-driven, this is personalized data story, but they were so intentional about the medium being the message. They give it to you in TikTok format, in LinkedIn format, in Insta format, in Facebook format, in Reels format, in all of, and so that you actually get to tell a story. So they're giving you something to talk about, which is what a brand is, friend tells a friend. Now, if you're a fan, if you're a gamer and you loved this game, what was so cool about Clash of Titans is that they went back. They have such rabid fans. They went back 10 years before they were ever founded, and they made up a documentary where they literally hired historians. They went back to see what were the popular typefaces, what were the bar formats of, like, you know, the bar games, table games, and all of that. And it won, like, every award at Cannes. They were so true to it. So if you ever want to check that out, it was, you know, it didn't exist, but they went and made up a story about their origin story that was not true. You know, Figma, this is a great example. Dylan is an extraordinary storyteller, but he's super authentic. Like, if you go to LinkedIn, like, he's posting all the time. And so he's telling stories. He's telling stories on stage with his people. And he's out there, but then they also are putting in the right places at the right spaces. They hired, like, the best graphic design company in the world, I think. It's called We Are Collins. My friend Brian Collins runs it. And they said, well, if we're going to be a design tool for designers when they first started, we should hire, like, the best designers to help us tell our story. And so they did these campaigns, but they couldn't afford, at the time, they weren't public, they couldn't afford to be everywhere, but they did those posters, like, in front of the buildings where those designers worked. So you can do, like, a poster ad or a graffiti to make it look like you're bigger than you are, but it's just outside NASA's door, nowhere else. But they're like, whoa, orbs, what? So there's ways for you can tell your story. MailChimp is hilarious. They created an entire campaign that rhymed with MailChimp. And so none of it was about MailChimp, but they created a world. And the storytelling was all about, so they had, you know, Nail Champ, and it was just very, very funny. If you go check this campaign out, and so it was just like, oh, pause, laugh, smile, because their brand has always been about a smile. And then this one I put in because if you've heard of this startup, it's an AI startup, but Monk is using Rent as a recruiting mechanism for AI talent. So that is not a campaign. This is totally a PR stunt. But guess what? It made all the headlines. Because they were, remember the first slide I showed you with all the, like, economy trends and this trends? Well, if you know that one of the stories in the news is that rents in San Francisco are not affordable, then this is a great stunt. Yesterday, which I do not think was a good idea, but it got them a lot of media, GameStop, which is famous for stunts and market manipulation, said they were trying to buy eBay. And so it made the news. They're back in the news. So I'm not suggesting that you do that. Perplexity's CEO said he was trying to buy, you know, Chrome from Google when Google was, you know, the FTC was seeing if it was fair for them to own all these various things. So Perplexity, like, did a whole campaign of what they were offering for Chrome. Again, not suggesting that you do these things. I'm saying, like, those are stories. There's lots of ways. You don't have to wait until you're, like, going to be at the Cannes Advertising Festival with a $100 million Super Bowl ad to actually have stories that get told. This is a story. So are you crafting stories to disrupt? Do you want to try and lead your category? If you do, obviously you're not leading it now because you're at the bottom rung of the ladder, but your aspirations are to get there. So how are your stories becoming your narrative? What stories are your community telling you? Remember we talked about one-to-one, many-to-one, many-to-many? So there's lots of ways to think about that, and you can gamify your stories. So play with me. Gamification is it's like an invitation, saying come and engage. And when you get people engaged, as opposed to just passively sitting back and watching, they're playing. The psychology of that, the neuroscience of gaming, it's like come, learn, compete, have fun. So this one, I'm going to run through it quickly, but it's, you may have heard of maybe, how many of you have been to escape rooms? Right? So escape rooms are very popular. There's hundreds of thousands of them all over the world. It's one of the fastest growing things because people want to be back together after COVID. People are looking for ways to do things together that are off screen, that are problem solving. So then this company, McBeauty, I think I'll find them later, but they're in here. But they were like, you know what? The beauty customer is not going to game escape rooms. Maybe we can build one. So they built one drafting off of a trend, and they went and partnered with an escape room. So you could do one night, one place. Not going to cost you that much. But then that story gets told. You might have seen this, where Slack and Salesforce partnered with Mr. Beast, and they had a Super Bowl ad, and 70 million people played this game. Gracie Town. This was the McBeauty, so they partner with Escapology, and so their escape room was site-specific for their customer, because remember, trust. Are you building something that resonates with me? Are you talking to me? So they were talking to them. Duolingo is perfectly famous for using gamification to get you back into the experience. Wendy's did this great campaign where they said, they hid their hashtag across all these video games. And their main message, you said, how do you tell a story? How do you know what your brand story is? They were like, you know what? We just want people to know we're not frozen. And so they did hashtag not frozen. And what a great way to get your core message there and around. This is one of my favorites because I was a CPG manufacturer when I ran my CPG company. Very hard to get your suppliers to change their molds. But in Europe, I think this was in England, Oreo literally got their game codes on the tops of cookies. So this drove people to retail, and then they had all these game codes that they had to play. Many of you watch Love Island. Remember that your customers, they may be CTOs and CIOs, but they're also people. They also watch reality TV. So thinking about how your brand is using game mechanics to activate participation, are you turning interactions into shared and playful experiences? Because you can. So experiences. I talk a lot about sensorial things, how are you engaging all the senses? And so experiences are sensorial because people show up. So meet your community, experiment with them, try things with them. Experiences are what people want to do. How are you bringing those senses to life? Has anybody been to the Sphere yet? So, the Wizard of Oz is at the Sphere. Yes, the Grateful Dead has been there. Yes, Bono's been there. The Eagles have been there. But the Wizard of Oz is a very old movie. This movie might be the biggest grossing, in a single place in the history, because they took an idea and said, we can bring in a different audience, sort of like the game rooms for the beauty company. This isn't the Bono audience necessarily, but it's in Vegas. Vegas has become a family town. It's like Drake. Did you see this stunt where he put the name of his album inside of ice? So they're creating a story. They're creating an in-person experience. And so it became a thing. Olipop, the soda brand, they did a national tour. You could do a national tour, just rent a car in Miami. And they went and they paired their soda flavors with chefs in that town. And it made it look like they were doing this all for Miami or for New York or for wherever. But so the amplification made it look like they were this giant national brand when they were just a small regional soda company. South by Southwest, for those of you who liked Westworld, they created their whole world. And you say, well, I'm only going to reach like 1,000 people. Is it worth it? But like, think about the 1,000 people, millions and millions and millions of shares and connections and experiences. Airbnb and Barbie, these are experiences. It's just one house. You're not going to have a lot of people going through that house, but how can you draft off of that cultural trend? What's a cultural trend that's related to your brand? What is it called? Not Hail Mary, the Hail Mary, what's the name of that movie with Ryan Reynolds? Project Hail Mary, thank you. Like, that's happening. What's Project Hail Mary, the Orbs edition? Just for fun, why not? Like, it's because people are thinking about space. So it's a cultural zeitgeist trend, but you can create experiences. We don't need to talk about, I mean, we can always talk about Taylor Swift, but the point of the Taylor Swift thing is that she literally changed economies wherever she went. So do you have the money right now to support a Taylor Swift conference? Of course you don't. But if you know she's going to Kansas City and you know your biggest customer's in Kansas City, and you know that you can go there and be part of some experience, when the Super Bowl goes to a town, when the Olympics go to a city or a country, these are like massive boost to these economies. So how do you be a part of these experiences? I love this because this was during COVID, and he was going on tour, and tour got canceled, so he dropped his tour on Fortnite. Genius. So he went, so for many people, their first concert experience is going to be Travis on Fortnite. It just popped up. This was my last startup, and we did a pop-up in New York. And so by day, I was exposing people to what we were doing. But by night, I was meeting with beauty influencers and teaching them about our clean beauty strategy. So create these experiences. So then there's network effects. So network effects, James Currier, whose office is not that far from here, and he runs a venture firm called NFX. He believes that it's all about the moat. And not only do I believe it, network effects are so important. And I encourage you to download his Network Effects Bible. It's because scaled and engaged platforms, they're going to have lower acquisition costs, but more importantly, it's your moat. You got to have a moat, because grabbing attention and losing it, that's hard. Grabbing attention and keeping it, how do you keep it? You got to build a moat. And so this is an example. You can totally go to their website and download their Bible. He's got great videos on YouTube. He comes into my class every year. But companies that leverage network effects, and I'll tell you about some of them, they have asymmetric upsides because they're protecting their moat. So this is an overview of the Network Effects Bible. The first time that we've seen the word network effects used was in the early 1900s. The CEO of AT&T said, wow, if we build more phone lines in that town, people will call each other, and we're kind of going to build a network effect, right? And so I just got a new car. I've never had an electric car before. And so, of course, I have insecurity, right? Because you're what if I run out of power? But Tesla was so smart, because at the same time that they were building the cars, they were building the charging stations. And that creates a network effect where it's a moat, because you're going to be able to charge. So I want to go to their chargers, because that means that I'm not going to run out of power. And so they were very, very smart about that. And then in the terms of the way the app works, they anticipate, because you told them, oh, here's the address of where I'm going. So I'm going to San Mateo. I live in Marin. So it's okay, well, that's X miles, and you're charged at Y%. So you might run out of charge, but we're already anticipating that and telling you where the closest chargers are and how fast they are. And we know your calendar, you have to be there at 10. That is thinking like a chess player. None of that is about the car. That's about the receptional design experience, because that only unlocks when I give it the address, or it only unlocks when they see my calendar. So it's these other data points that aren't your data points as the car manufacturer. But if you're thinking about the person and you're in the relationship economy, then you're in the relationship with that driver. So what is the driver struggling with? Where's their serotonin? Anxiety, shit, my car's gonna run out of power. So oh, let me anticipate that need. Let me give her an alert. And I already know how much power she has. In fact, I'm gonna remind her before she goes to sleep to charge the car. Thank you. Now all of a sudden, I have a relationship because somebody cares about me. Somebody's thinking about anticipating my needs. That's chess. So all of these network effects are very real, and they're all different. Language is a network effect. So when you don't say, I'm going to search something, you say, I'm going to Google it, right? And so how do you think about that? How do you think about what is the language? You asked about your story. Well, your story, part of it is your brand language, your brand narrative. What language? Are you coining new terms? You know, to like it, to share it, to tweet it, to pin it. Like, those are all language sets. When I got to Baby Center, because I didn't create the company, I was brought in to turn around and scale it. I said, what are we calling our users? They were like, I don't know, users? And I was like, no, aren't they like Baby Center moms, Baby Center dads, Baby Center grandmas? So all of a sudden, because I saw in social that people were making their own t-shirts because they were such diehard fans. I'm like, well, why don't we call them that? We have a tribe out there. We just haven't named it and claimed it. We got to name it and claim it. And so language can become a network effect. So you have to ask yourself, like, what's your network effect? Network effects are not virality. Because virality is like lightning in a bottle, but network effects, you have a moat and you can keep it. So a lot of people think that network effects are about like going viral. They're not, unless your virality is built into something that's a system. So how are you building that movement? So paying attention, this is the engineering for virality. So this is about how you actually architect that story to go viral. So you have to harness the power of cultural trends. You have to think about like subcultures, subreddits, brands, meme-driven conversations, and then you got to foster a relationship with the people who care about those things. So, you know, virality is a behavior. It's designed into the experience people choose to share and propagate. So, like, how do you get into the psychology of what do people choose to share? Virality, I think it equals identity times emotion times participation. So it's not about a great ad or anything like that, or a big influencer, or buying your way into distribution. It's about, like, what do people choose to share and why do they choose to share it? So I kind of broke this down into the pattern that I think is underneath all of it, because there are lots of different reasons. So there's FOMO, like I don't want to miss out on that. There's like personal expression, like I'm sharing this because it's a way that you know me better, or way I want you to know me better. Tribal loyalty, like this is my team, like I'm like, this is my guy, this is my QB, I'm going all the way. March Madness, you know, Super Bowl, playoffs, we're in playoffs now. Then you have like stories, brand characters that you're like, you think it's so funny. And so humor is a huge unlock for virality. First mover credibility. And then you want your audience to be your distribution engine. So how do you unlock that? What does it look like? Is anybody familiar with Cat's Eye and the Gap ad and how this all worked? So if you're not familiar with this is a girl band that was synthetic, meaning that they didn't naturally come together. It was a show, and they gamified it, who they were going to pick for the band. But to Gap's credit, Gap actually partnered with them before the band was even picked. So they were like part of the conversation. They were part of the virality. They were part of the hysteria for people who were interested in this. So they were like, we're not going to wait until this is a trend. We're actually going to be part of it. This one is one of my favorites because some like gaming dude like saw his black refrigerator and thought, he tweeted it as a meme, and he said, look, my Xbox arrived early. And it was the #1 thing shared. The Xbox social media manager was like, what the hell? So like, that is not a big ad campaign. But to his credit, he went to his manager and he's like, dude, you're not gonna believe this, but we have like 1 million shares on a black fridge, and like, it's not even ours. So let's make one. The guy's like, what? Like, you're like my social media manager. You want to make a refrigerator? He's like, yeah, let's just like make 1,000 and send it out to gaming influencers. So they did. And that went banana pants. Like, I don't know if it was billions of views, but it was huge because you opened it and had the green color, it made the sound. And so then Target was like, we want to sell these fridges, because it was like gaming size, so you could like have it in your room with your Red Bull or what have you. And then like Target's older, and then Xbox is like, wait, Microsoft is like not in the home appliance business, so they stopped. But as a campaign, they went like deep and fast, and it all started from that stupid photo. And so you just don't know. Does anybody know Cami Lame? Yes? So do you know his story? Sorry? Not his background. So he was a factory worker, Italian, Senegalese, I believe, by birth, but lives in Italy. And what he does is, if you watch his stuff, no sound. So it's international. And he's extremely funny, and he has very defining features, like look at his eyes. And so what he does is he looks at like dumb DIY hacks, and then he basically just replicates them. So like Mr. Beast, he's like looking at the algorithm and saying what DIY stuff is trending, and then he goes and remakes his own. No sound, just like, and sometimes he cuts them into his stuff. So he's basically just 100% ripping off what is happening, and he's the #1 TikToker. And he's become like just a mega star for being basically like a silent actor. And he's with no original content. He's just drafting off. So point I'm trying to show you is like, guy was a factory worker. He just studied this. He was paying attention. Like, there's lots of ways. You don't have to be like a big agency or have like a huge VC behind you. He did this all himself. Now, of course, he has a team and all the rest, and he's worth billions of dollars, what have you, but that's not how he started. For some of you, you might know the hashtag OOTD, outfit of the day. So that started by an influencer or just somebody, and it caught on, and then retail companies were like, wait, like our clothes are trending on this OOTD thing. What is that? So they said, every day we're just gonna post an OOTD. So hacks and hashtags, what hashtags are trending in your category? Pay attention. This was my company, and we made a brownie mix, organic, that only needed water. And some customer took it on a camping trip, and they had the idea that they put the brownie mix into an orange, and then they put it over a campfire. So we saw that, but what was interesting was what happened. It's not that the post went viral, it's that the comments went viral. And so, but in the comments, there was nothing quote unquote sexy about the comments, but people were telling their friends, let's do this next weekend. This looks so fun. Come along and do this with me. So it's a friend bringing a friend. We had nothing to do with this, but we noticed it, and then we promoted it. So it's like looking for things. Are you familiar with this sweet monkey? You know the monkey story? I know, so sweet. But then props to IKEA, they put the monkey in their ad. They didn't ask for permission. Sometimes family is who we find along the way. So like they jumped on it. Pantone, do you know what Pantone is? The color company? So every year when the Super Bowl gets announced, they like pit the colors of the teams against each other on X and social. They have nothing to do with the Super Bowl, but they're riding that trend. I need to put that slide back in here. I forgot about that. So you have to ask yourself, like, what about this thing makes somebody look good sharing it? Like, how are you playing to their vanity? What's the emotional spike? Can users participate it? Can they clip it? Can they remix it? What's the social payoff? And do you think they're going to come back for more? So when you're thinking about engineering for virality, you got to think of those things. Now there's co-create and collaborate. So let's be friends. So when you think about how do you create relationships, how do you create like cross collaboration, like fast culture moves at the speed of fast. And it can forge these like collaborations that are for, I call it a reason, a season, or a lifetime. And so there are some things that are a lifetime, like, Nestle's chips may always be in that cookie, in Toll House cookies, and they might be, that's what I call an ingredient brand, where like, they have, cookies that have M&Ms in them, and they're on the shelves, and it's a permanent collaboration. But then there's episodic ones, some that like just happen for a moment. They might happen at Coachella, and then it's done. There's lots of reasons that you can co-create, and you can do it with your community. So you might have seen the North Face and Gucci collaboration, but what are they doing when they do that? Gucci is a company that was steeped in history and in luxury and in fine craftsmanship. But the next generation, the millennials who were starting to become wealthy, they didn't want to behave the way their parents and grandparents who grew up on Gucci, which was like a very elite brand. They want to be mountaineers. They want to be skateboarders. They want to do extreme sports. But Gucci's not like a technical brand. North Face, total technical brand, but wants to be a luxury brand. Boom. So it's an episodic collaboration, to borrow the equity. Coke and Morphe, this Coke was having their, their anniversary from the 70s, and Morphe decided to drop a makeup collection. It sold out in 4 minutes. Crocs, what's so crazy about Crocs is at the same time that they're doing Balenciaga, and they're on the runways in Paris, the same year they're doing KFC. So like, what? But that's cool for them. They're basically saying, we're anybody's brand, we're a blank. Beyonce just crushed this one. I mean, come on. Do you know, remember we were talking about like Taylor Swift and how she can move an economy and the Super Bowl and all of that? This tour, not only did they crush, of course, everyone went to the concert and people went to the towns. Cowboy gear sales. Crazy town. They drove $50 million in Houston alone of like hats and boots. Nothing to do with the concert. So like, and then at every place she went, she did a different drop for that region. So that became a collectible. And then you wanted to go to those concerts, and they were only available there. So like, people just went nuts. She gave them a theme. She gave them a reason. It was a season. And she broke into a category that they said she could never do. So for those of you who are Dodgers fans, do you know who Murakami is? Any art fans out here? Yes. Like, they dropped a Murakami collaboration. That is so dope. I love Murakami. But like, you couldn't have probably done that in Kansas City or like in St. Louis, but it's LA. LA is like the media capital of the world. This sold out in 1 minute. I want that. I mean, I loved these jerseys, but like, they jumped on it. They jumped on it. They didn't know they were going to win. So like, you got to pay attention to like, what are those trends, and make them yourself. Like, have fun. Fanta and Xbox, like, just unnatural. Now you say, what is this? How is this co-create? Do you know how many hashtags there are on the internet that say shot on an iPhone? Like, I don't know, 20 million, 100 million, I don't know. Huge. So nothing here tells you that the camera is waterproof. Nothing here tells you that the camera can shoot in super slow-mo. All of that is just in the photo, and it was shot by somebody else, not by them. So that is a co-create and collaborate in a very interesting way. This is a funny story. During COVID, my dishwasher broke, and no one would come to the house, so I had to figure out how to fix it. And I went to Thermador, and they were like, they sent me to this link on YouTube, and this guy, like, I literally pulled all my things out of my dishwasher. I climbed in with my iPhone. My sons were like, why is your ass, like, where are you? You're inside the dishwasher. I was like, well, you fix the dishwasher. Anyways, he's like my new BFF, but like, he was an influencer because he was the right guy at the right moment at that time when I needed help at that moment. So this daughter, her father's a traveling salesman. He had like this weird thing where he would always shoot the colors, the carpets at all the hotels. So she wanted to surprise him. So she called the hotel, and they did a contest, and they had like 500,000 people participate in like picking the next carpet for this big hotel chain. So like just fun stuff that's not obvious. Like who are you partnering with? That reason, a season, a lifetime. Like how do these collabs spotlight your people and tell new stories? Because all these stories, you can create stories. Phygital commerce. So physical commerce, the merger of physical and digital. You know, Aaliyah stood up here and said she got her top on Amazon, and so that's ClickFall. And if you know anything about like retail, they analyze, like if you're deciding where to put your store, you're like, what's the footfall? Meaning how many people pass that store so that I can like draft off of that. But like, think about ClickFall, how many people are clicking into that. Amazon is crushing on ClickFall. So you have to think from ClickFall to footfall, location, location, location. And so personalized marketplaces, they inform trends. Conversational AI can turn searches into discoveries. You can bring online and offline shopping experiences together. So marketplaces are huge. 60% of what gets sold on Amazon is not by Amazon, it's by their marketplaces. And so this is a company I love. It's called Lily AI. What do? They deploy packets of conversational packets to commerce companies so that when you're in the search, it's conversational searches. So at the Met Gala, which a couple of years ago, it was like a botanical theme. So everyone was like on shopping sites looking for botanical dresses, but botanical dresses that were middies and this and that were not like cross-tagged in the SEO under or in the search, because they didn't know when they did that. It would be like prom dresses or middies or maxis. But because they had the Lily AI pack, all of a sudden the searches became conversational searches. Walmart is like all in on adaptive retail, and they're crushing it, and they've done a great job in growth. This one is hilarious. Do you know this story? I see some heads shaking. So Mexico City has it's said it's had the worst traffic in the world, or one of the worst traffics in the world. So cars are basically parked. And ironically, during COVID, they built gondolas to like help with traffic, which is kind of genius. But anyways, so Burger King is a quick serve company. They weren't even on the map. They weren't a top 10 app in Latin America. And somebody was like chatting with the billboard salespeople, and they were like, these billboards can be personalized. And because we know the cars are parked basically from 4 to 7 p.m., like traffic moves at the speed of backwards, you could order your Whopper and they would deliver it to your car while you're parked on the highway in traffic. So you can see here, it's like saying, I got you, Andrea in the red Honda, your Whopper's coming in 7 minutes. They went from like not even being top 10 to the #1 quick serve app in the region. So like it's an orthogonal idea that like a billboard and a burger company and traffic in a moment, but it's like thinking outside the box and understanding what that is. This is a company I was on the board of. We bought this tiny company called Boca, and it was only sold on Amazon and at Erewhon in LA, which is like the Bergdorf Goodman of Whole Foods, of natural foods. And they were, I don't know, they were doing like $3 to $5 million top line. And what we did, because we had a middleware, a proprietary AI layer, we were looking at every search people were doing on Amazon, and they wanted this flavor or that flavor or this ingredient palette or this special feature, whitening, this, that, and the other thing. And so as a result, we knew we were able to take that predictive merchandising, get it to our supply chain, and now Boca is the #1 toothpaste on Amazon, outselling Colgate and Crest and Sensodyne. Massive. And then that let us open up omni-channels, so now we're in Target and CVS and other places. So how is your brand like thinking about and leveraging data and marketplaces to actually have every on and offline experience be magical? Those are very, very connected things. And then finally, all of this drives to the thing this entire talk is about, which is loyalty. And so if you're going to build loyalty, you got to bring your friends. So when you think about the go-to-market, when you think about the top of the purchase funnel, you know, I don't think the funnel is really that way anymore where sales happen at the bottom. I think actually loyalty happens after the sale. We're like, well, I already made the sale. Why do I care? Well, you care because you want someone to talk about it. You want someone to feel really good about that experience. So it's building authentic connections, relationships. How many times have I said that word? But they're nurtured after the sale because they're bringing your friends. So everything that we talked about here ties into the loyalty love loop because it's always on and it's infinity. And so when you think about that, loyalty is an immersive loop. Every touch point pulls people deeper into your world, your brand world, and your building worlds. And you have to design a world for your community to inhabit. And so many examples here, many were consumer, but I showed you other enterprise things to say like, oh, like 1-point type as a automagical like code pulled from one experience into a text thread. That's like the iMessage world. iMessage doesn't have to go and create Bridgerton to have a world, but it keeps you in the OS. It keeps you on the platform because you like that automagical experience. You don't want the green type, you want the blue type. And so it differentiates it. And that basically wraps up like this framework of how to think about modern brands and communities as a playbook for founders, for enterprises, for consumer businesses, for everyone. That's it. I'm so curious how long that took. How long did that take? Not bad. It was about an hour. That's what I said it would be. Okay, cool.
Do you guys have any questions? Anything you want to?
Hi, my name is Marcel. I'm here in the back.
Hi, how are you?
Fine.
What do what problem, what's the name of your company? What problem are you solving and how are you solving it? One sentence each.
Okay. My company is Enlight Health Solutions. We are solving the problem of severe mental health patients that other companies don't know how to solve it.
And how are you doing that?
I'm doing that through a model business that we call a clinic without walls, where we are in charge of the recovery of the patients.
Oh, wow. That's cool. So do you have people like in they're like social workers or what, how do they do that?
We have therapeutic companions, caregivers, and psychologists until now. And we work together as a team with the psychiatrist and the other stakeholders in the recovery of the patients.
Cool. I have a guy that I just spoke to. He's, the name of the VC is Healthier. Okay. And you should look into them. They're here, but they have a series of clinics that are just for extreme mental health patients. They have like 6 of them. They're just getting started. They're a VC. They're not the firm, but that's something interesting for you to check out.
Yeah, for sure. And my question is, when I started my company, me and my co-founder, we are very empathetic. And although we didn't have all this knowledge that you transmitted to us, we kind of do naturally. But as the company started to scale, now we are a community of 6,000 people with 300 people working on a daily basis. And it's very hard to scale that. Because in the streamline, some people are not so well aligned or doesn't get it, or the information doesn't go so well as when we did in person. So my question is, how can I scale this empathetic way of building trust in a larger company, and how I would start an MVP on that so I can start to improve from where I am now to...
So let me ask you a question. So who are the people you're talking about? Are those practitioners, or are they patients? Are they families of patients? Are they social workers? Like, who are the people?
The center for me is the recovery of the patient. And all the people that are working together to provide the recovery and the support areas, and then it comes our general administrative team. So I want people to serve the recovery of the patient and not to serve what I think. I need people to hear what the data is coming from the recovery of the patient. And
Got
it's
it.
hard to do that.
How do you train your people? Or do they come in trained?
They come in with a basic training, but I have an area of my company for keep on training them in a loop basis. So I provide the service, I go to the lab, understand what's function, what's working, then I create the educational program and I feedback train them again.
And so have you gamified that at all? Have you thought about that?
I thought about it, but I haven't done it yet, but I plan to do that in the future.
I think if you were to think about the rewards of like, why is someone incented to get smarter, the leaderboards, and think about Duolingo as like a framework for how to incent people to be trained, and how do you reward people for those things. Maybe it's in, and also, if you want to hire more people, are they incented to bring in their friends? Do they get comped for that? Does it become a place where people really want to work because you're so good to the people that work there? Like, what is the playbook for your practice? I'm calling those people practitioners.
Yeah.
Which is different than the playbook for your patients. Like the example I gave you of Peloton is a good example because they put a lot of time, money, and effort on making the instructor experience such that they could make the rider experience great. But if you only focus on the patient experience, you don't focus on the practitioner, in your case, experience, then, and they're dealing with such precious, hard stuff. It's so mentally stressful for them.
Yeah.
The mental load and the burnout for dealing with that level of patient, that type of patient community. So how are you taking care of your people? How are you nurturing your people? And then how is your brand being known as the place that truly doesn't only understand wanting to deal with the mental health patient community, but the practitioner community, like they're your heroes.
Yeah, exactly.
And so those are just some, I mean, I don't know enough, but.
No, you are very precisely. That's actually the problem, because we have the supervision, we have 24 hours people available to talk to them, we have a benefit club. But when I start to hire middle management, they stop understanding that the provider is more important than them. So they start to try to become more important than provider, and that's just the opposite way of doing it.
So
and
the incentives are not aligned.
Yeah.
I'm also an investor and an advisor of a company called CLASP, CLASP. Check them out. They started in the income share agreement. If you know what that is, it's like helping people with their college loans by having income share as opposed to a student loan. And they pivoted to being a white label solution for healthcare providers. And so they only focus on upskilling healthcare providers.
Okay.
And so because there's such a dearth of nurses and practitioners, and so you might learn by going and looking at all their stuff, because basically they're working with like the HR and hospital corporations to help upskill people and retain, because people are jumping all the time in their jobs. And so that might be interesting for you to take a look at. And I'm happy to, you should check out Tess Michael. She's the CEO. She's a great founder story. She's telling her founder story all the time. And so she's someone to look at.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Good luck, and thank you for doing that work. That's such important work.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
So my name is Akash. I'm the CEO and co-founder of a company called Loeb Labs.
Loeb Labs.
Loeb Labs. And we're trying to address the unsustainable energy usage of modern AI. And the way we're doing that is writing software that runs on lab-grown brain cells, because they are potentially thousands of times more energy efficient. And
okay.
Yeah, so growing brain cells in a lab and attempting to program them to basically be intelligent and perform computational tasks.
Okay.
Yeah. So the work I've been doing, I've been working with like a large kind of like platform provider that they're trying to be like the AWS of biocomputing. And so I've created basically a software stack. And right now I'm kind of at this decision point where I've been debating like open sourcing the stack and trying to build community, or, getting early revenue, licensing to these platform providers. And, my kind of instinct is to go open source, but kind of being in this environment, I see the need to like show revenue, show customers, all of this other stuff. So I'm wondering if you have any thoughts on like how I can kind of better frame this like open source community approach while needing to show that like, hey, this is a very valuable, you know.
Yeah, so I think that Slack example I gave you about April and how she like had only 5 community members, but they were like really important ones. And so thinking about while you're in the foreground building an open source movement, because I have this ladder. I also teach entrepreneurship and other things. That's not what I was doing today, but I can do the on-demand coaching. So you're starting with a feature. Most of you all have a feature, you wouldn't be here. Hopefully that feature is a product. So you're probably at product stage, most of you. That product is becoming a company, you're starting to get funded. Your goal is to make that product a brand, but brands are not because you say it is, you know, you have to really architect that. Hopefully you're either creating a new category like you are, unless other people are doing that too, or you're disrupting a category. But the highest order, like if you really want to go and get on Tim's wall, that's a movement. And movements are not built alone. So part of the opportunity for you, in my opinion, is to figure out like who's in your cohort that really cares about this. Like who are your stakeholders and who are you going to make, remember what I said about purpose with a company, not a company with a purpose? Like that should resonate with you. And who is your 5 or 3 or 2 like key partners, key like places where you want your APIs or whatever, however you transfer these brain cells, and that would be the right partner for you while you're open sourcing it to unlock the movement. But having a couple of enterprise partners to validate what you're doing so that you can, and at the same time you're open sourcing it. So I don't think they're mutually exclusive, but I also think that your quote unquote book of business with those few doesn't have to be as big if they're the right people that have the right scale. Like would you rather have like 100 customers that are all just sort of trying it? Would you rather have like, you know, OpenAI and, you know, Anthropic, like those are the people you want. I heard somebody say this total non sequitur, I mean orthogonal to this, but somebody was telling me the other day that to save compute, nobody in their company speaks Mandarin, but Mandarin has less characters than English, and so they translate into Mandarin, they do the compute, and then they come back to English because it's saved them so much money on compute. I was like, that's really smart. So it's just something I'm passing along because I personally don't have any use for that data, but I thought it was really smart. Anyways, I don't know if that answers your question, but I hope it does.
Yeah, that is actually really helpful. Thank you.
Good.
Yeah.
Switch it on. Hi. Yes, so I'm Jacob, founder of Grasshopper Air Mobility. We're developing heavy cargo drones. I actually don't want to
Heavy cargo phones?
Drones.
Drones.
Almost. So we started out with wanting to develop flying cars. And in the flying cars industry, actually, there's a very famous story that happened in the last years. It's a company called Lilium, and they started out, I think, in 2014, 15, and they had a 10-year development roadmap, and they needed to raise $2 to $3 billion. And so they actually started to raise their money. And they had a followership. They called themselves the Lilians. And it was a very controversial story because they had a very unique propulsion system and battery system. And there was, on the one hand, the critics, the aerospace engineers, that said this will never, ever work. And then there were the investors and the followers and the believers and like, yes, this can work. And it's a beautiful design. And if this happens, it will change everything. And so they had to go through multiple funding rounds, essentially. It all hinged on a governmental loan, and the loan didn't come, another loan didn't come. All of the other investors pulled out that they had raised over €1 billion, and then they had to close the company. Another example, obviously in the US, it's also run by a businessman who is also polarizing, right? And so my question is about polarization. How aggressive is the marketing? Because, right, Lilium built a huge pedestal for themselves, and they then fell down to zero. President of the United States is very well known for pushing, being very aggressive, and he's also building a huge pedestal, so he can also fall down. And so basically my question is, how aggressive do you want to be still be taken seriously? The word trust is everywhere. I do not personally trust the President of the United States. I also don't trust the founders of the company Lilium. Now I went on their LinkedIn, I see they're building a new stealth company, so obviously they know how to raise funding. Basically, yeah, I don't really have a concrete question, but like, can you talk about polarization and aggressiveness of marketing and how to build this kind of brand?
Yeah, so it's a great question. So a couple of things. Number one, irrespective of that company, they had a tribe, right? And they used language as a network effect. And so that's just interesting that they call themselves that, all of that. So that's just an example of like how that shows up. I'm not saying that's good or bad, I'm just saying it is. So in today's world, because of the algorithms that have forced these polarizations, we have what's called bifurcation, so boycotts. So you've heard of boycotts, where someone says, I'm not going to buy that product because it doesn't reflect my values, this, that, or the other thing. But now we have boycotts, meaning that brand totally stands for my values, and I love it, and I'm all in. That brand completely does not stand for my values, and so we're seeing a slice because of the algorithms, because of the polarization, and because it's trending to alienate people. So I would say to you, first and foremost, I wouldn't worry about polarization. Well, as it relates to your brand, if we're talking about your brand and your business, like execution for what you're doing and safety is like the number one thing, and you know that. And so you have to build trust based on like track record and safety and all of that, and capacity and that, proof of concept, right? But in terms of how do you deal with bifurcation, I think that you can't please everyone, but I don't think that intentionally polarizing your audience is like the way. I think those are what I would call empty calories, meaning that, it's like you're eating junk food and it feels really good right now, but boy, do you feel like crap later. And so for me, being authentic with like what your real values are, what you stand for, what you're trying to accomplish in the world, and why you're trying to accomplish it. You can still have a fun story, and you're going to alienate some people, and it's really important to like state who your enemy is, because you want to disrupt somebody. Now your enemy may be another company, or your enemy may be the price of fuel to move cargo. Like that could be your enemy, or like cargo ships could be your enemy. I don't know enough about it, but it's like important to know like why you want to win, and then how to get people on board for that movement. And if you have people that are supporting a movement, like you stated your views about our president, and so you can't deny that he started a movement. It happens to be one that you don't want to be a part of. And let's just say I don't talk politics, but I totally align. But what is your movement? What are you, and movements are not built alone. So who else is in this movement? Maybe you'd be surprised that maybe you're in I don't know this to be true, I'm just making it up, but you may be in the same movement as, bio-labbed brain cells to save compute energy on AI because you're trying to save energy on something else. So maybe you're both in the energy optimization and climate transition movement. You might be in multiple movements, but I'm saying like find your people that have shared values of something you're trying to accomplish, and you can't please everybody. It's okay. Good luck.
Hi, I'm Tamika. This was great. I'm really excited because I've been really trying to think about the community aspect with my company. Little background, it's Aegis. We're modernizing the way people interact with 911, so we're attacking the infrastructure layer of all the 911 calls that go abandoned or unanswered because someone can't speak, whether it's like domestic violence all the way to a medical emergency to a language barrier. So with that said, when you think about safety, it's such a topic that people are like, oh my gosh, I care about my safety. I want to make sure my family, my loved ones are safe. And then there's the other part that's like, oh, I'm fine until it happens to them. So I would be interested to know, or I'm interested to see what you would think about community and like branding with personal safety, and because I don't want it to be like, fear for your life, you could get hurt, but like something that brings people together. That could maybe we have a viral loop or something that.
Well, I'm curious, like you're doing an infrastructure layer because, like, what's the problem with 911 right now?
So 30% of the 240 million annual 911 calls go unanswered because someone can't speak. So all the information that someone needs, or a dispatcher 911 would need, it goes missing, or they can't communicate over the phone when you called because of the situation you're in.
The victim.
The victim, yes, but all the information that they need. So we're kind of like helping both ends. For the responders, like police, fire, EMT, they have all the information they need so they can respond appropriately and help faster, but then also for the user who can't speak, they need help and they deserve, help and to feel safe.
Of course. So, but how are you solving the user's problem?
So we have a mobile app right now, so with just 2 taps within our mobile application, they would get everything from your profile, the reason for the alert, medical background, real-time GPS tracking and location, and audio and video, all that's sent to our partnered monitoring company so they can then dispatch the correct emergency personnel. The best way I like to describe it is like we're the ADT, but for people.
Got it. So your goal is to get people to download the app, to populate the app, and then to hopefully never use the app. You want to be the product that nobody uses, right?
Yeah, I literally have a tagline that says, "Hope you never need us."
Hope you never need us. Exactly. I was right there with you.
Yeah.
And so, but getting over that hurdle of getting people to download it and have a different behavior because they might not be near their phone when they are, in crisis.
That, and to think about safety, because like you don't think about it unless it happens to you or other people, but the safety industry is going to be projected to reach $1 trillion.
Totally. So what's interesting is that I ran a vibe coding hackathon at SC a couple of months ago, and one of the teams was building, and this was just their project of the day, but I'm giving it to you as like a framework, which is that women who like to run at night or in unsafe neighborhoods, you can get a Google map, you can get Waze, you can get lots of things, but you don't have like people reporting safety, and that might be the only time women can run, or it's not just women, but in particular, women feel unsafe. And so this was almost like a Waze for runners in neighborhoods, so that it did 3 things. In the only few hours we gave them. One is that it would send, like you would say, like, you two are my buddies. You're not running with me, but you're my friends and you're in the region. And so when I turn it on, you know that I'm running. So it's like a follow my friend. But it's specifically like follow your friend, you just know where they are, but you don't know what their activity is. Whereas like this is specifically for like outdoor sports in urban places. So you would get an alert. The second thing is it would tell you, because like Waze tells you there's traffic, what have you, it would tell you like what the crime alerts, and it would bring in a lot of the feeds that were coming from local police, what have you. And the third thing is it was tied to your personal ID and your emergency phone and your app. So part of what I think could be an opportunity for you, like with ADT, is that you are that ingredient brand that you co-create and collaborate with the Google Maps and with the Waze and with the ADTs and with the iPhone and the OSs, so that you're like a feature layer on top, and then you run all the infrastructure behind, but they already have the installed base. Because changing user behavior is really hard.
Yeah.
So your community of stakeholders is kind of like that Slack story.
Okay.
Like maybe you should be doing all your work, not all your work, but your sales and channel distribution with like Google Maps.
Got you, okay.
So they can become like a distribution partner in that you have their APIs and they have yours.
Yeah, we've been working or starting to work with the Citizens app and using their API so we can give like predictive awareness. So if you're traveling to Miami and you're staying at a hotel, we can like geofence a 1 mile radius, and you would get the alerts of, hey, there was a shooting, there was someone that was robbed. So you can be aware of your situations, but then also pushing a like check-in notification to your loved ones to be like, hey, they're safe, like they arrived safe too.
Yeah, so I think there's something in the idea of, the way that when Netscape launched, it was just crushing it as the browser of record. And Microsoft, which was like the biggest software company at the time, didn't have a browser strategy. But because Microsoft was like the software of record for operating your computer, they just built Explorer in. And then it was like by default, they just like took the market overnight because they were the browser of record, because they were already installed. So you have to think about like, where's the installed base and how can I be like a feature or an add-on to that installed base?
Gotcha.
It's just something to think about.
I like that. Thank you.
Is this like reverse Shark Tank? Like,
Right.
yes.
All right, hi. My name is Jenna. I'm building Pixie with my co-founder, Evan, here. We are building the infrastructure for modern in-home childcare. So if you're a parent, you work with nannies. We are the management layer for how you interact with that nanny and build trust over time. Trust is everything for us as well. And in particular, one of the things that really resonated with me is this idea of we are definitely a purpose with the company, and in particular, we're really passionate about bringing dignity to the workforce for in-home childcare and supporting their development. So a lot of our current conversations and messaging is around how do we support nannies, how do we upskill nannies, how do we bring best child development practices into the home. But our parent is our customer is the parent is the payer. So my question to you is, when we have these two different stakeholders, and even like the agencies that we're working with, this may be a separate stakeholder, how do we think about prioritizing our messaging, especially when thinking about the movement that we're trying to build around our product?
And so you're basically training and upskilling nannies and home care providers.
Our first product is more around onboarding the nanny. So if you're an executive and you have an associate, you usually will use a tool to bring them on board, get them up to speed, all of the information that they need to be set up for success in the workplace. Our workplace is just the home. So that's where we're focusing first, and then the next layer is on-the-job upskilling and training.
Are you familiar? I'm an investor in a company called Brightspace. Are you familiar with Brightspace?
I am, yes.
And so they were really trying to just basically create the operating system for in-home daycare, because people's living rooms, it's like when you think about what are the pen and paper industries we can disrupt, because they're just like not functional, because they're pen and paper. They're hard to put your arms around them because there's lots of pads and lots of papers and lots of living rooms. But they wanted to create a network effect by saying, okay, well, if you're part of us, we have all your kids' information, we have their doctor, their emergency, what have you, and then if you need to drop off at a different place, we'll tell you what's available, like the Tesla charging station. That was their big vision, and they've done a phenomenal job. But I would look at some of the ways in which they've built out. I think, it's interesting. I read Back to Cultures and Trends, because it's very important, especially for people who are somehow dealing with consumers, but enterprise too, like understand cultures and trends. So I read an article, it was like in the style section or something like that, where like nannies are so stressed because parents are so obsessive that they're like following their every move, and they feel like they can't make a move, and they're tracking them on their phones, and they're like, why are you here and you're not there, and you were supposed to be in the park, and I see you're at a deli, and and they're putting air tags on them, like just crazy stuff, which I understand for the reasons. I'm a mom, I'm a working mom, I raised my kids and I had live-in nannies because it was the only way I could do it. I was a single working mom for a lot of it, and so there's a certain trust you had to build. Yes. Having said that, I also wanted to invest in my nannies because they were part of our family. Like, I'm entrusting the care of my child, so I totally get that too. But I think you also have to respect the fact that they're humans and they need some agency to like be able to make good decisions and not feel like the parents are preying upon their every move. Exactly. Because that would be paralysis. Imagine if like you're. Well, actually, now I think Zuck is recording every keystroke, so Big Brother is watching you. But so it is the world we live in today, but not at the level of like the home. I think part of it is also the parents need to get trained on like how to, because they don't always know how to treat people. And I think that's really important too. And you need to be definitely a brand that people trust. And I think one of the channels you should look at is the au pair community.
Absolutely. Yes.
Because there are agencies that place au pair. I mean, you know all this already, but babysit, I know a lot about the parenting space. So, but I think that you have to think about like who are the trust networks and how do you get those trust networks on your side, and the au pair communities and the placement agencies and then the care.coms and the other places like that. Those are like some of the trust networks because they're like the LinkedIns, they're the job placement place. And then you have to think like, how do I get parents trained up to be good bosses and good employers? And that's a tricky one too. But I think Nextdoor is also a place that is so hyper local that it could be an interesting way for you to think about like just focusing on one community and getting like have some product market fit in that one community. Sarah Leary, who has done some guest lecturing for me, she was one of the co-founders of Nextdoor. She talked about how when they started Nextdoor, they literally picked 2 towns and like index cards and telephones. I mean, not index cards, postcards. And so they built something that didn't scale intentionally to like see if they could find a way. The other thing is like the nanny mafia is real. And so the way that Nextdoor started is they found like the mayors, not the actual elected mayors, but like, you know, the people who are like organizing the picnics, organizing the barbecues, those are like the mayors of the town. And they said, if you can each sign up 10 people, then like you can be a mayor or what have you. So maybe there's something to be said for the nannies who are like the queen bees to be the ones that become your ambassadors. Because if they endorse it, you know, Lululemon, when they first started, they would go into a town like a year early before they had a store, and they would identify like who were the dope yoga teachers in that town, and they would meet them and talk to them and give them their clothes and all of that before they ever had a distribution center. They never had a store. And then they would have, but all of a sudden, like the cool yoga teachers were like wearing the Lululemon clothes. And then they would put a warehouse in before they did a store. And they would let all the cool yoga teachers like shop from their warehouse. And then they figured out where the stores should go. And then they would invite those cool teachers to teach free classes in their stores. But it was like a 3-year play or whatever it was. But it was like very much, so I feel like there's the nanny, like the queen bees who are like controlling the nanny mafia in any like zip code or even smaller than a zip code, like the playgrounds and those places where they live and they talk. I would also make sure you have it in a couple of languages.
Yes.
Because a lot of nannies are not native English speakers here in the States. So I don't know if that's helpful, but
yes, thank you so much.
It's no worries. Startup savant here. Yes. Yes, I'll get to both of you, I promise.
Is it okay?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Ainur. I'm a founder of AR Sana. We're basically helping kids with speech delay, including kids who have spectrum of autism. We have gamified system where 3D character practice the speech with kids, and everything related to AI, and therapists can see the progress from their side, this kind of stuff. The thing is, basically our system was ready about a few months ago, but I was not able like to let myself to launch it. Even like we had like more than 480 games and this kind of stuff, like everything is there. But one thing that I was really afraid of is like launching, and then I thought that if I launch it, then parents like they download it, and they maybe like I will lose the trust of like maybe like there is a fear of like if I'm launching, they're gonna check it and it's going to be the first version, right? So I'm still like in the process of like improving it, and I was able like to launch it a few months ago, but I'm still like postponing it only because I'm freaking out to lose the trust. So if, for example, parents can say to each other like, oh, it is such a shitty app, you don't need to like download it, only because like I realized that our audience are very sensitive people, like kids and parents who have like, yeah, and like this thing is really helpful, yeah, whenever you were telling about network effect, yeah, and creating this network effect. But what else? And the other question is, like, if I lose the trust, am I will be able like to gain the trust again, and how gonna like operate in this situation?
Well, I would say, firstly, are you doing, do you have it in beta now, and are you with certain families, or it's not launched at all?
We already piloted with several schools, with schools that have their inclusive education, and we also launched with therapy centers. We launched it with the therapist itself, and like basically all of them are ready to pilot it and check it, and already piloted it. And on our wait list, there are more than 400 parents. But when it comes to the pilots, they were like 3. And now we are going to launch it, but it's going to be basically people have to pay for that.
So is there an enterprise price and an individual price?
Yes.
So I think it's important, like, to build trust. You just need to be transparent, and you need to like fully say, here's what's great, here's what's a work in progress. Do you want to help us? Will you be part of our community? So inviting them, as opposed to trying to pretend everything's great and let them find the flaws, and then you're feeling so vulnerable for the flaws. The best defense is a good offense. So like, tell them, you know what, we're a work in progress. And if it was up to us, we would launch something that was perfect, but nothing is perfect. And if we can make a small impact on your family, and you can give us that feedback of what's working, what's not working, we want to partner with you. You are like our reason for being. And so your messaging and to the parents and letting them know that they're co-creating it. We talked a lot about co-creation. This is a great example of co-creation, where like, it's not obvious that like you would co-create with a parent, but like, who knows that child better than them? Or the speech pathologist, or other people like that, or the the therapists, or special needs counselors. So if you bring them into your tribe and you really let them know that like their feedback matters, and that they're helping to co-create, and that you shout out to them and spotlight them, because they're unsung heroes. Like with the mental health stuff, it's all about those kids. Those people are unsung heroes. And so make them heroes, spotlight them. Like, all of these techniques are about finding ways to, they're a stakeholder. And so how do you let them feel like they're actually helping you make the product? And that their work is going to scale? Because I bet if you were to ask all of those people, they would say they only wish they could work with more kids. They only wish they had more capacity. They only wish they had more time. I'm sure they're spending a lot of their own money to buy special things that are going to help these kids, because it's under-resourced. And so how do you help them be better at their craft? And the way to help them is by having your tools. But your tools are not perfect. Guess what? Neither are you, neither am I. Nobody is. And so don't position it as such. Position it as a work in progress. And say, we want your feedback, and then celebrate them when they give them the feedback.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Of course. Yes, sir.
Yeah, hello, thank you very much. My name is Ali, and we are building something like Cloud Code, but for marketing.
Cloud Code for marketing?
Yes. And we already have a traction in Central Asia, in Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, and that kind of countries. And I just came here to the United States. It's the biggest country and the biggest market for us. And the problem in my market is trust. When brands don't trust you, they don't give you their money. And there is a huge competition on the market for me. So my question is, what is the first step on the new market when you are just new, just born, to building a trust? First, maybe 1, 2, 3 steps.
So that's a very crowded market. I'm curious what you think your TAM, like what's your moat? Like, how are you disrupting what's already out there? Like what writers doing, or this is doing, or like, are you creating synthetic campaigns? Are you creating synthetic CMOs and insight groups? Like, how are you thinking about this?
First, we start with deep research. I mean, like, we research competitors, users' behavior, what is their pains, what they want, what they don't want. Based on this, we write the strategy. I mean, agents do it autonomously. Based on this personalized strategy, launch campaign. Right now, we are focusing on performance marketing and organic traffic for B2B tech. And after launching, optimizing agent comes and optimize the costs. So, for example, if Google raise the price and there is CPM is too high, the budgets reallocates into the meta, for example. So AI control it 24/7. And
may I ask you a question? What do you think of those features? So one is ad spend optimization and campaign optimization based on the goals of the campaign. One is like the strategy and the deployment pre-campaign. Are you also creating the media, or you're just doing the like agency ops?
No.
Not the creative?
No.
Got it. So, and of all those things, what do you think is like your real superpower? Like that's like your best feature that you have nailed?
That's a great question and really, really hard question. I ask it for myself every day because technology, like
it's changing all the time.
Changing every hour maybe. So I think my moat is not the technology. I think my moat should be distribution. I think because like technology is like there is a lot of cloud maybe or ChatGPT and then how to call it ChatGPT's cloud Codex or blah blah blah, a lot of things. So technology is not the moat, I think, and it's easy to copy. So I think my superpower would be distribution and trust.
So what I meant was, I think I hear you, and I think you're right on that. However, like I meant, what's your best feature? Like where you could like if you have a stack of features, like a menu of the things that you do, of that menu, what's like the thing that you do better than all the rest of the things on your menu? Is it pricing and marketplace optimization for ads and spend? Is it, the insights to create the campaigns? Whatever it is, you don't have to answer it now. Make people get known for like a winning feature. And so you want to be known for that thing. You do a lot of the other things too, because you need to in order to deliver this, that, and the other thing. But like if there's some feature that you are known for, that's what you want to focus on. Because people are like, oh, really? You can do that? Like, I want to talk to you. And so figure out what's that thing that you do really, really well, and focus on that feature as a way to bring people into your set. So this is not a good analogy, but it's one I'm going to make anyways. So there's a makeup company that has lots of different products, but they are known for mascara and brows, like eyebrows and mascara. Even though they make color, they make lipstick, they make creams, they make all these things, but they can't be everything to everybody. But if they can get someone to, so they're like all about brows and mascara. But when people come to the store, of course, they're buying a lot of other things, but they only have so much dollars. And so they focus all their innovation and all of their messaging on like brows and mascara. But they make all these other things. And so what I'm saying to you is like, what's the thing that like you want to be known for that's like amazing? Like I told you, I got a new car and I've never had a self-driving car. It's such an out-of-body experience. I'm still not used to it. I don't know if I ever will be, but it's like super cool. But there's all these other things like I don't know, but I'm just focused on like learning this feature because it's like I feel like my life lies in the balance. So it's like they want to be known for a thing, one feature, one thing. And then the rest of the things come with it that make that one thing great. All the things I talked about with charging and the app, and and this is a massive company, so that's not a good example for you because you're so young. But think about that one feature that's like your automagical feature that people are like, you're like, what pain are you killing? There's a pain for a marketing manager. What pain do you kill? You don't have to answer it. You can tell me, but you have to answer it for yourself. And then how are you killing it? And then who is not killing that pain that you're gonna kill? But like, think about like very specifically, what pain are you killing for somebody who needs your service? And then all the rest of it like is part of the suite. But things don't become suites. They start, like, you may not know this, but back in the day, there were companies that actually were in the business and raised venture capital to be a spell checker. Like, that was what they did. That was a feature. But that was at the time that word processing was starting, and so the word processors, there was like 15 spell checking companies. 3 of them got bought. 1 of them was bought by Microsoft. They integrated into Word. There was no such thing as Office at the time. And then Office became something, first it was Word, that became its own ecosystem. All those things were bought. So Adobe Suite didn't exist. Google Suite didn't exist. It used to just be Docs. Then it became all these other things. So I think the idea of having a perfect suite as opposed to like this amazing feature that makes somebody's life better, like what pain are you killing, is what you need to focus on, even if you have other features around it. And then you can introduce people to other things. That's my thought, without knowing a lot about your product. Sure.
Hi, can I question?
Hello.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Can I read? Okay, because I have two questions. I have an app, a daily reflection ritual. That app, AI answers like an AI coach. The philosophy users go through from the chaos to order. iVillage and the Baby Center both turned private life moments into shared identities. How do you scale a private ritual into a community without breaking the intimacy that made the ritual work in the first place? It's the first question.
First, before you go to the second question, I just want to make sure I understand. So you're building an app. I may have gotten this wrong, so indulge me. You're building an app that has a daily prompt for an inspiration.
Yeah.
And you're talking to the bot, and it's giving you a prompt like, what is making you happy? Like, give me an example.
7 bot app ask the user 5 questions every day. So user daily answered simple questions, and once a week the app give user reflection, like a coach. He says, "Oh, you're doing."
So by giving me the prompt every day, you get a weekly quote-unquote diagnostic that's interpreting the answers and then telling you kind of where you are in a mental state or this or that, and then giving you advice.
Yes.
Okay, got it.
So, and we have a little community, a little 22,000 people community.
And where is that community operating? On a Discord?
In the WhatsApp
WhatsApp community, got it.
WhatsApp chat. So some people active in that chat, some people non-active.
That's very normal. It's usually a 1 to, for every 1 person, 100 people are watching.
Yeah. So we have maybe 10%.
That's if you have 10% of people who are engaging, that's very high.
So what should I do to more active and grow this community?
So I think that if what you're doing is helping people, even in small ways, there's beautiful stories there. So I think that it's a classic like place. There's such richness in those stories. And so I think the opportunity to tell some of those stories, even if they're redacted, meaning you're not like giving names or anything like that, but to tell people those stories, other people are gonna want those stories to be their story. And so that will really motivate people when, you know, you feel like, oh, these are the 3 things to know that your relationship's in trouble, or here's a way to sort of build new friends in a town. I don't know what the stories are, but those stories will attract other people. The question is, how do you take the stories out of the app and build them more into another place so that those stories can be discovered and those stories can be inhabited, so that other people, like, I want what she's having, you know? And so, plus, I think there's a lot of people, like at Baby Center, the way that we created such intimacy and such trust, we only had one data point, your due date or the age of your child. And when we had that data point, like I'm carrying an October 2026 baby, that would be so cool, but I'm not. That ship sailed. But I would be dropped into the October 2026 birth group. And all of a sudden, all the other people in that group were all giving birth at the same time. So one of the ways you can think about it is if you can think about what is the data point to create context to create a great community. So if I was to ask you, like, tell me 5 or 3 things that are different tracks, like somebody might be dealing with relationships, somebody might be dealing with, you know, spousal abuse, I don't know, horrible things, like, I hope not horrible. Somebody might be dealing with wanting to express their creativity, like 3 different kinds of intentions, that maybe you would create some groups where people are like, oh, that's cool, because what happened was, after the birth clubs, people, like when you raise a child, you go through all these milestones. Like, we're potty training, we're sleep training, they're socializing, we're dealing with new nanny turnover, what have you. And so we would see the most popular people, and what we realized is because they had to acquire so much information in such a short time and then be done with that, like once they're potty trained, you're on to the next thing. But they're like, what do I do with all this information? So they wanted to be like little mini mayors, so they would host those communities. We did not run those groups, but what we did do is we set them up by knowing the subjects that they cared about. And then we would recruit people to come in, hey, you wanna like run this group? And they were so thrilled to do it because they had all this information. So you could potentially identify some of the things that people care about and then set up groups. And then those groups will start to form bonds, and then they'll want to reach out and help other people. It's like the sponsor model. It's just a thought.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Good luck.
Thank you.
I think we're out of time.
Okay.